Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today I have a very special guest with me who has already been on the channel once before. You already know me. My name's Raphael. I am an astrologer, tarot reader, numerologist, energy worker, and my guest today is the owner and director of the LSA, the London School of Astrology, has written countless books and more articles than I'm sure is could fill probably a library, and has been on the channel before. Has extreme amounts and extensive knowledge of astrology and is all round just an awesome dude and an Aries, but we'll forgive that part. That being said, Frank, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for coming today to talk to us about Jupiter's move into Cancer. Say hi to everybody and let them know where they can find you.
Well, hi everybody. Yes, and speaking of lots of articles and books, what you see behind me is my book collection, just of astrology. But above at the top is all the magazines that I've written for. I've had to throw about 300 of them away. So speaking of Jupiter, there's a lot it there. And we'll get to that. Jupiter in Gemini at the moment, lots of books, but I live like this and always working, always writing. So hi everybody. Yes, Gosh, I think I've been an astrologer for 35 years and probably practicing for 30 of those, and run the LSA, London School of Astrology.com. So always happy to see you. And I think maybe it's our second, third, fourth time. I'm not sure, but we've done a few, haven't we?
Yeah, we did Mercury as a series. We did the Moon, which was hugely popular. If you guys haven't seen it, go back. It is on the channel. You can still watch all of those. There's lots of really good information on there. And we had a really good laugh sort of getting it out to everybody. We're hoping that there will be a part two of this. But for now, we're going to explore some of Jupiter in Cancer, what a transit's going to be about, what it might mean, how it might sort of play out for all of us, and maybe explore some charts next time round as well. So, when we're talking about Jupiter, obviously, in terms of the mythology of Jupiter, Jupiter was used in the Greek pantheon. We're talking about the planet of benevolence, but also the god of more. I always think, like, even though it's not an over word, I think more is definitely a Jupiterian word. What do you think, Frank?
Which one? Over or
More.
more? Yes, yes, indeed, very much more. More over the top. Anything that feels extravagant and large. I mean, Jupiter got that reputation by people observing it in the sky, being the largest planet in the sky, but also, of course, most astrology is based on hundreds and thousands of years of observation, and Jupiter always tends to, when it speaks in the sky to us, it tends to exaggerate or be over the top. But it can be, it can have a whole wide range of possibility and potential. So in it was, of course, Jupiter and Zeus was the king of the gods.
Mhm.
But often, I think when people write about Jupiter, particularly about Sagittarius, there's a sort of clumsy, accident prone, happy go lucky aspect to it that you hear about. But also Jupiter is the planet that's about the ego in the sense of the large ego, the person who's famous, larger than life as well, or the one with that yields a lot of power and influence. So that can be used for good, and it can be used for other purposes too. But it's a planet I think that sometimes just simply uh, pigeonholed into this larger than life fun type of planet, but it's also a planet that wants fame, influence, glory, and it's a powerful but power hungry uh, quality in the chart as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know that when we think about that, so going back to Zeus, in terms of the mythology of it, as you say, the king of the gods, and when you think about Zeus, yes, we had this idea of wisdom, we have this idea of being jovial or being larger than life, but also when you think about a lot of his exploits, he was a little bit of a, he wasn't always the what's the best way to, he was a bit of a shit sometimes when you think about like all of his, he was a very prolific god, always rampantly sleeping with someone, or all various different types of stories. But also, when you talk about this, the other side of Jupiter, and a lot of people don't sort of really look too far at that. And I think it's a really important point. When you think about this idea of benevolence and growth and expansion and this really big, sort of larger than life energy, you also have to consider that the other part of it is maybe they suck up all of the air in the room, and this idea of being grandiose and the power hungry, and also lording that power over other people. Zeus was definitely known for that. And it's a really interesting dichotomy when you think about it, right? Because on the one hand, you've got this really jovial, protective sort of warm energy that's makes you shine bright and gives you gravitas, and on the other side it makes you this really sort of egotistical, power hungry fanatic in some ways as well. And Jupiter as a principle, even in the chart, you can see like whatever it's amplifying is whatever you're going to get more of. So if it's amplifying or expanding something in your chart that's challenging, the likelihood is that you're going to experience that part of it as well. So, yes, we've got all of the good stuff that's bright and light and happy, the Lord of Levity, as he's also known. But on the other side of it, you also have something quite intense as well.
Yeah. Well, the Gokalans, who did the extensive research into astrology in the 1950s, 60s, and beyond, when they were testing the sun in the chart, which when we think about the sun, back then it was considered the ruler, the great power, the glory, all of that, the in the chart, and they found that the words associated with the sun were actually found with people who had strong Jupiters. And
Wow.
so the need to influence, control the Svengali, the diva, the con artist as well, the person promising too much, all those things come under Jupiter. And so I was always curious about that and realizing it really wasn't a solar principle. The solar is a sort of Leo sun internal journey. Jupiter's about how I can connect or rule over everyone else. So it has that different feeling. I think Jupiter feels they were born, Jupiterians feel they were born for greatness. My favorite quote comes from Mrs. Hyacinth Bouquet,
Love her.
keeping up appearances. Patricia Rutledge, the actress, had Leo midheaven, but what she says at one point, she said, I do hate it when people try to act superior. It makes it so much more difficult for those of us who naturally are. And that's Jupiter speaking,
Yeah.
and I just love that quote. I've used that over the years. Also, the other thing is in palmistry, Apollo, the sun finger, is actually the finger of creativity, your ring finger. But
Wow.
the finger that we use to boss people around, the index finger, is the Jupiter finger. It's the one we use to get our wishes. This is what I want you to do, that quality. So Jupiter is I think probably Linda Goodman and many other writers, many other great astrology writers, created a joyful, playful image of Jupiter, when in fact I think it's a lot deeper and can be a lot more challenging at times.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad you mentioned that, actually, just to open up some of the other parts of this discussion, because I have an older brother who is a Sagittarius, and on the one hand, he is like constantly studying, always learning something new, is very philosophical, but he can be quite rough and ready. He's not always sweetness and light, and like the bouncy sort of jovial Jupiter that everybody talks about. I've noticed that a lot of Sagittarian people have quite an edge to them. They can be very hardy, I guess is one word, and a little bit not intense so much as like a Plutonian or a Scorpionic kind of intense, but I think they can be quite sort of in your face. And in the terms of Sagittarius energy, and I kind of always marvel at that there is that very bright sort of future orientated side that leans towards bigger ideas and visions and is always trying to think about what comes next. But at the base of it, it's actually quite a gritty sign as well, Sagittarius.
Interesting. Well, it is half man, half horse, isn't it? So I guess you're going to get a hoof every now and then from other, and maybe a few others as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. In terms of so obviously, as you know, Frank definitely knows, in ancient astrology, Jupiter was also the ruler of Pisces. What's your thoughts and feelings around that?
Well, yes, that's interesting. It's a very different energy. So Sagittarius is mutable fire, Pisces is mutable water. So you've got the fiery belief, and I think the Sagittarian aspect of Jupiter is very much about this. It's going to be great. I go in with a sense of confidence or putting 100% in, and this is where Jupiter and Sagittarius can get despondent. I often see Jupiter and Sagittarius in people who suffer from great bouts of depression at times or despondency because they're putting 100% in and the world might care 25% of the time or 25% of the effort comes back. And so that Jupiter side of Sagittarius wants a lot, expects a lot. It will go into a casino and say, we're going to win big today. I can feel it. And there'll be the one person to win by accidentally pressing the wrong button and something will happen and all the bells will ring and they'll probably treat everybody in the casino to a drink. Um, the Pisces energy is a lot more introverted. They're both signs to do with belief. So Sagittarius has that belief in the world doing it, doing great things. The Pisces belief is a lot more on an emotional level. Pisces goes into a casino, please help me, rescue me from my life, from the people that use and abuse and accuse me, and it will go in and long to be rescued from the mundane life. Pisces is at best, a spiritual sign. And Jupiter, the side of Jupiter that's Piscean or that connects to Pisces, is in a way longing to connect to something more meaningful in life. So Sagittarius is a bit more active, louder about it. Pisces is more intuitive. I'll connect to the people and the beliefs that resonate with me on a deeper level. So it can be a lot more introverted and personal as a journey. Although Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac, so it's very much about how we're all interconnected. You hurt one thing in the universe and it hurts something else. So there are repercussions to everything. I always think of Pisces as the sign that is the simply it's the ocean, isn't it? Pisces. It's a drop in the ocean, but it's also the ocean in a drop. So everything that we feel and connect to uh, in a Pisces way is part of who we are. The greater is also in us, and vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really interesting thought. And just the way that you said it has triggered a thought and a feeling for me. I have Pisces in the eighth, debatable with Frank. He doesn't like whole signs. But I have Pisces in that sort of occupying that eighth house space. Even from a young child, I never understood like. It's not so much that I didn't understand death. It was just that I never really felt like people that had died were not here. Like I've always had that sense that like our world and the spirit world are always and always have been like very close. And when you said that, it made me think back to like even when I was younger and people had lost people, I'd always have this thought in my mind of like, well, they're still here. So this idea of like Jupiter and bringing things together and the Pisces energy sort of having that cohesive kind of feel to it. Jupiter has a lot of that in it. You know, this idea of bringing things together or creating the bridge between the two. When you think about Sagittarius, it's as you say, half man, half horse. So you're bringing the animal and the higher nature together. And then in the Piscean side of it, you know, another double-bodied sign. You've got the two fishes, right? One light, one dark, one yin, one yang, etc. This idea of two things existing or bridging the gap between the two. And truthfully speaking, when you think about all the land masses on the planet, what's the thing that joins them all together? The ocean. So yeah, yeah, brilliant. I love that. In terms of like meaning and philosophy and higher education, I know in Sue's book, if you guys haven't read it, there is a brilliant book from the LSA called Frank, help me out, the
Well,
Green
the yeah,
Book.
the Contemporary Astrologer's Handbook. Yeah.
Yes, and all first year students get a copy. I have mine faithfully in the back somewhere. It's in, I remember her mentioning in that book that when you're talking about Jupiter and this idea of travel, and when you're talking about the higher mind, these are all things that expand you or your horizon in some way, whether mentally, even emotionally, or even just your perspective. And so both of those will do that. It's really interesting as well when you say, because obviously they're both mutable signs, Sagittarius, as you say, mutable. Pisces mutable. That's what they share in common, but fire by its nature is active. So there's that idea of like Sagittarius going out into the world to learn and to soak up and do and experience more of everything. And then you've got Pisces on the other side that's kind of like, I'll just travel internally and astral project out into the world. Right? Or find a way to meld with the cosmos in a way.
Indeed, indeed. Yes.
So, question. In terms of obviously Jupiter's now going to move its over the course of June. I think it's like June the 7th, June the 10th, 9th, 10th, give or take where you are in the world. Jupiter is going to move into the sign of Cancer. So for you guys out there, you've heard me talk about this already. The world has been abuzz with it as well because it's a once in 12-year transit, and Jupiter moving into the sign of Cancer is said to be exalted. I'm not sure how Frank feels about that, but I'm interested to hear about it. What do you think about the idea of exaltation? And in fact, can you give us a little breakdown of what it is, and then give us a little take on what you think about that idea?
Okay. Well, astrologers for many hundreds of years have classified planets in certain signs as being in their ruling sign, for instance, in their domicile or exaltation. And then you have the not so nice categories of fall and
Detriment.
and yes, yes, and the it to me it's been overused, and these ideas, and unless you can use them productively, it just ends up scaring people or worrying people. Uh, the exaltation idea simply is that the planet, the two, so Jupiter is said to be the ruler of Sagittarius and Pisces. That simply means that the planet has a lot in common naturally with those two signs.
Yeah.
That's all it means. It doesn't mean that if you have it in your chart, you are you have a better Jupiter, or it works more, or there's more fortune. It doesn't really work like that. Jupiter has 12 faces, one for each sign, and they've all got a job to do. And sometimes the planet and the sign are more foreign to each other. And so the idea of a planet being in fall or in detriment just means that for example, Jupiter is said to be in detriment in Gemini,
Mhm.
because Gemini is about facts and information, and Jupiter's about belief.
Yeah.
Jupiter's also said to be in fall in Pisces because, sorry, in detriment in Pisces, in Virgo, excuse me. Um, Again, because Virgo is about detail and Jupiter is about grabbing the essence, the
Yeah.
overall idea of something. So they're different in nature. And astrologers use that in very simple terms when they were answering questions of their clients, what we call horary, or
Mhm.
electing for the monarch the best time to go to war, or whatever, whatever the astrologer was doing for the monarch. And it's a simplified way of seeing connections and affinity. So Jupiter's been in Gemini, and I've heard a lot of astrologers in the last year say, well, I can't wait for it to get out of Gemini because it doesn't belong there. And I've been having a great time with Jupiter in Gemini. I've been writing and working and planning things, and because every time Jupiter's in a sign for your natal chart, excuse me, or for for transiting like it is for everybody in the world, it's an opportunity to do new things with the sign and
Yeah.
new things with Jupiter. So Jupiter in Gemini was take those beliefs and put them on paper. Write that blog, get that book out, do something, carry your beliefs, your ability to envision something greater,
Mhm.
something meaningful, put it on paper, write it, connect, share it. That's what Gemini does. So I never see them as contradictory or conflicting. So I don't tend to use those terms unless I'm talking about ancient uses of astrology like election or horary,
Yeah.
which of course I also teach, but it's only for a particular reason. So Jupiter's said to be exalted in Cancer, and I think the reason why they have an affinity is that they're both about protection, aren't they? So
Mhm.
Cancer's the emotional protection. I'm protecting my family, my tribe, my mum, my past, my history, what belongs to me emotionally. And I'm doing all this because Cancer's the crab and it will
Yeah. Yeah.
contain and hold things. And Jupiter, in a sense, is that feeling of having an angel on your shoulder, that sense of, you know what, it's going to be okay. If I
Yeah.
believe in things, if I have the confidence or the belief that things will be okay, the universe will respond. The uh, the law of attraction is very Jupiterian, isn't it? And probably more in
Mhm.
Pisces. And it was some we also know it as The Secret. And there
Yeah.
was a book by a woman called Barbara Moore, which is such a great Jupiterian name, as
Yeah.
uh, all about that secret of attraction. And we know that if we go out into the world with a negative attitude or feeling like we're going to get picked on, abused, picked last, whatever we go out into the world, we tend to just see that. Even
Yeah.
if it's not happening as much as we think it is, it tends to be, we come home and say, guess what? You know, somebody walked past and they splashed me as they went past, or they
Mm.
dropped something. And all you're doing is focusing on the negative. So I think the message of Jupiter generally is to say, let me reach out and believe, and a great Jupiter word, believe in uh, the that the universe will provide if you believe it, if you go out with a positive frame of mind. Um, when I wrote a book many years ago called British Entertainers, which is all about the charts of famous British entertainers.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of research into it and stuff, and I remember laughing because um, uh, just music and film and names of things. George Michael created his album Faith, very Jupiterian world, when he had his Jupiter return, which
Wow.
is when every 12 years it comes back to the place of your natal chart. I remember Cher released Believe, a great Jupiter title, when
Yeah.
Jupiter was in Pisces on her midheaven. I mean, you can't make it up, really. So,
Yeah, that's
all
incredible.
those things you see in the world around you.
Mm.
And Jupiter in Cancer is about protection and it's about family values. And I mean that generally. I don't mean that in a particularly on a political level, as we
Yeah.
here. Family values, land prices should go up, house prices,
Yeah.
property should go up. There's that sense of expanding and feeling, oh wow, my money, my home is worth more than it was. That sort of thing we should feel with Jupiter. Um, there's also going to be a sense of patriotism with Jupiter.
Yes.
You know, believing Jupiter in your country, believing in your land. Now, that can be a problem, of course, because Jupiter tends to exaggerate
Yep.
or have extreme reactions or overreactions to things. So I imagine that from June all the way for the next 12 months,
To
we're going to
2026.
hear get back to family values from our politicians on different sides of the Atlantic. Um, Allegiance is another Jupiter in Cancer word. Nationalism, protect our borders, protect, very Cancer, very Jupiter,
Yeah.
protect our land. We're going to hear different versions of this depending on who we listen to. So there'll be, I think, an exaggeration of a sense of patriotism, nationalism, but also at the same time coming back to that, asking yourself, what do you truly believe in? Ultimately, the people we have around us, whether they're chosen family like friends and uh, good and partners and people, or actual blood family. These are the people that we need to put energy into protecting our relationship with. And I think that's the key of the year ahead, for everybody, whatever sign you are. Look at where you can uh, approach people that feel like family, whether they're literally family or not, whether they're chosen family, and look to secure your relationships with them. Security, homeland security, family values, all of those things, we're going to hear a lot about. But on a personal level, it's kindness, it's safety, feeling safe with people, helping other people that you love feel safe. That's really key. And also empathy as well. These are all the very best of Jupiter and Cancer. And I think we need to ask ourselves, how are we going to do that? How are we going to reach out and make people feel loved, appreciated, secure in that knowledge that we care about them? And I think that's one of the big messages of Jupiter and Cancer.
I love that. So many things to latch onto and talk about. My little cancer moon's like, yay, this is good. Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what's funny as well is when you talked about this idea about family values, I would go further than that and say it's also about the traditions as well and bringing some of them back, or maybe bringing them back to life, or breathing new life into them. And maybe, just maybe, because Jupiter also has a healing quality to it, it can help you heal some of those relationships with family. Maybe it can help you bring some of those relationships into a better sense, right? Like there's this idea of improving it or leaving it better than it was before. I like to think, I hope to think that maybe the world starts to shift more towards the idea that, okay, well, the idea of what is the traditional family is very, very different now. But let's still protect that idea of family because that's important. I
Yeah.
like to think that on the other side of it, maybe this happens with borders as well. Like to say, okay, maybe we don't share blood, but we share kinship in the fact that we are both human. What can we do about that? The other thing is as well, like you say, on a personal level, comfort and nurturing, security, all of those things I think are going to be really important. I definitely agree with you about the prices of houses. I think that's going to really take things up a notch. I wonder as well, because with Cancer being the fourth sign and speaking to that idea of the foundation, if things that come out of the ground will also go up in price. So things like precious metals, jewels, all of that kind of stuff. What do you think?
Well, Cancer is linked, of course, to silver.
Yeah,
So it might be a good time to invest in silver now, before June. Uh,
excellent.
um, but before things start to expand in that way. But I think, yes, generally the idea of healing is an important one. And uh, but when Jupiter moves into Cancer in June, it begins to speak to Saturn and Neptune in Aries.
Yeah.
And so the first hint of Jupiter in Cancer is probably going to be an explosive one. It's going to
Mhm.
be uh, issues to do with a militant approach, a political or sort of armed approach. It's an aggressive approach to
Yeah.
countries and borders, and sometimes it takes, as we often see with politics, it takes an extreme reaction to someone, a politician or a particular way of uh, behaving,
Mm.
for us to make changes. If everything's smooth, everything's nice, we're all being fed, we're all a little bit happy, we're content.
Yeah.
And there needs to be sometimes an edginess of saying, really, that's not right. We've got to do something about it. And I think the fact that Jupiter squares off with Saturn and Neptune as soon as it enters is going to be a complex way of seeing Jupiter. We're not really going to get to see the fruitfulness. Cancer is very fruitful in that way. It's very nurturing. It's the midwife. It looks after people. We're not going to see that. We're going to see more of a battle for survival at the beginning of that. And I
Mm.
think politically that's going to be at the forefront. But maybe that standoff in June, July leaves us feeling the rest of the time, the rest of the year that Jupiter's in Cancer, for us to make better decisions about our lives, about our homes, about our families. Um, and I'm not a political beast. My dad was hugely political. Everything, around the table at dinner every bloody night was politics and things. It doesn't interest me. I don't get wrapped up in the ideology that makes people so mad. I'm rather thinking, how can I do something personally to change or to see things differently? And I think we all get wrapped up in being angry at somebody or disappointed in a politician or what we've chosen or whatever, and we lose touch with what we need to do about it on a personal level with the people.
True, and what we can do as well. I think a lot of the time, I'm totally sorry to cut you off, but I think that's such a really important point. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about your work is this idea that you're being invited to partake in something rather than it's happening to me and I have no control. I think, one thing that I always try to get across to people as well on the channel is that you always have agency. Even if the choices that you're being given aren't necessarily ideal, you still somewhere in there have a modicum of control over what you do, how you do it, where you go after you've had to make a certain decision. I think it's a really important point that you make.
And
One of the
even,
things,
I mean, even if the choices are limited, the way that you want to perceive those and how you let them affect the rest of your life is the key. You may just have a choice to stay where you are right now, financially, whatever it may be. That may not feel like a choice, but being able to see some meaning in that choice, being able to step back and say, okay, this is a time to just not ruffle any feathers, not to make any big changes, but to just keep working on myself and working in my job. It's how we view, how we translate those choices. I think that's the key. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's really important, especially with because Jupiter, as you say, is squaring both Neptune and Aries. At the same time that's happening, the Sun will be moving through those early degrees as well. I think it's right up to the point that the Sun reaches like 8 degrees. So the Sun is also being checked in a square by Neptune and Saturn as well at the same time. So this idea of like your own guiding light, because obviously Jupiter and the Sun, they get along, right? They know how to work with each other to a, to a degree. So, and this idea, there's something you talked about last year that really, really stuck with me, and it was this idea that Jupiter and that Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries is going to bring challenges to speech. And I wonder if a part of this square that takes place between Jupiter is that reaction. And I often give the example on this channel because a lot of people say, like, oh, Cancer, they're really emotional, they're crybabies and stuff. And I always say to them, if you think of Cancer energy as mama or papa bear, fuck with their kids, find out what happens, right? Like they kind of, you see like a completely different side to that energy. And I wonder if then, in that square, something kind of comes in to try and check all of this. And then we, the people, decide actually, no, we're not going to accept that or stand for it. And we want something better or different.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, the freedom of speech is very much linked to the Uranus in Gemini that's coming up as well at the same time. So we have as you know, and I'm sure you've been talking to your viewers about it, but it's this year is a remarkable year, and the difficulty with that is that once again, if you think that everything is going to change for you, it's not. It's not. The idea that this is what people promote online. Everything, it's a year of massive change. Everyone gets excited, and then nothing changes because, once again, as you say, it's an invitation to change. It's never simply you wake up one morning, the world has changed, things are wonderful, your house is worth twice what you paid for it all of a sudden. Um, these things don't work like that. So my feeling is it's so much more about uh, how am I going to how am I going to view it and what am I being invited to change? And because so much is changing this year, it's a wake up to change so many of your different perspectives on life. So Uranus moves into Gemini. Look at areas around you where you need to speak up, where you
Mm.
need to find your voice, where you need to say, look, this isn't right. I'm not joining in, or count me out, or whatever it may be. Uh, Neptune and Saturn in Aries, again, is about the theme of coming back centrally to who you are and taking responsibility for yourself. Saturn and Neptune have been in Pisces now for the last couple of years together.
Forever.
Neptune, Neptune's been in Pisces for a long time, as we know, 2011, 2012. It's been an interesting ride, but it's also been the re-emergence of the professional victim. And
Yeah.
you can't say
Wow.
that without people being upset with you as well. And I would
Yeah.
say to everyone, look at where you find excuses. It's because and then you have a letter. I was saying earlier, these days, and I respect people who obviously, who have ADHD, all different things. We used to have letters after our name, like PhD or BA or whatever, Now it's letters that describe our suffering. Now, we are suffering, and there's a lot of people going through all sorts of things that we've got names for, and people are much more aware of mental illness and mental health issues. All of that is an improvement. But at the same time, just simply attaching yourself to a label and that becoming the reason for or the excuse for, I think limits your ability to decide and move forward productively. And
Yeah.
it's moving into Aries, say, discard that for a bit. Yes, you may have the following and it may be absolutely who you are, but don't let it define everything you are, and don't let it stop you from developing forward. Now, there are going to be people listening to this. Well, he doesn't know that I've got this and that, and I do. I mean, I'm surrounded by students, friends, clients, people who are suffering, who have genuine difficulties, and I'm not discarding them, overriding them, but I'm saying look at anything that you attach to that and it becomes the excuse. It blocks you from moving forward. And that's the key this year with Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries. Aries is about the individual, Saturn's about responsibility, and Neptune is about the trend, the fashion. And the fashion for all these last 12 years has been, or 12, 13, 14 years, has been this sense of, oh, I'm attaching myself to a particular ism.
Where it's the
Yeah.
people kind of usurp those titles as their identity rather than a part of who they are.
And they're welcome to do that. Obviously, it's a set of free countries, we hope, in different ways. But if it's blocking you from making progress that makes your life fuller, richer, happier, that's what I say we need to look at. What
Yeah,
is it, what's getting in the way? And if anything, that any labels are getting in the way, dare to set yourself free from them. Dare to just put them to one side and continue with your needs, your journey. And that's what I think that's about.
very interesting. There's only two things that I really want to add to that. One is this idea that Saturn, and I know we're talking about Jupiter and Cancer, guys, but this is important conversation, I think. This idea that that Saturn and Neptune coming together like erodes or dissolves things. And the way that I'm understanding it is it's going to erode or dissolve the sense of self or identity that you have while it's in Aries in that conjunction, so that you can rebuild a new self, so that you don't have to remain that old self, right? And then this idea that Jupiter is going to be squaring these two planets from Cancer right in its early degrees really feels to me, it's almost like, when your parents used to say to you, you need to take this medicine, and you'd be like, I don't want to take it. It's not very nice, right? And they said to you, well, you're not going to get better, right? What's your choice? It's kind of a similar sort of thing with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea. The other thing that you mentioned earlier about safety and creating safe spaces, I think Jupiter in Cancer is definitely going to do that for us eventually. As you say, like after the initial sort of kerfuffle that takes place, I do wonder if we start to create more safe spaces or protective spaces for, maybe for women, but maybe for this idea of things that need safe spaces to be discussed, places that are protected. So one of the examples that I would give here is comedy. This idea that comedy is a safe space to be able to talk about and laugh about everything. It's not because we're laughing at people, it's a way of catharsis, really, right? It's a very human thing to laugh at really heavy things, or, when things get too serious, I'm the inappropriate humor person. And I love it because it kind of breaks up those moments where it's too somber, it's too heavy. And
Yes.
this idea that that is a safe space, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and cancer often is linked to humor simply because of that natural identification and laughter, and we need to laugh as much as we cry, that feeling. Um, but yes, you're right. I think the Uranus and Gemini is going to be the big issue of uh, fighting back and not. I mean, there's nothing as unfunny as somebody taking offense on somebody else's behalf. Now, particularly with comedy, it's like, oh, we should ban that because that's offensive to those people. And those people over there are having a laugh about it because it's actually quite reflective of their experience or whatever. I mean, I never really watched the comedy Meet the Kumars or the Kumars at number
Ah,
whatever. I never saw it.
brilliant.
But I remember that was such a great twist on the idea of a white comedian coming on and doing a silly Indian accent. It was themselves laughing at their culture. I remember Little Miss Jocelyn. Do you remember Little Miss Jocelyn from about 10 years ago? Had a series. Uh,
That's Michaela Noel, Michaela Coel, I think her name is, the lady
um,
that does it.
I think it
I
was
think it's her.
Jocelyn somebody, maybe somebody else you're thinking of, but she uh, she brought up, I think it was the Nigerian community, and they were very upset with it. But it was, it wasn't banned because she was coming from that place, and from that space. So there's nothing as unfunny as being taking offense on other people's behalf. Let them get on and express their dislike of something if you want to. But comedy has a Uranian message to wake us up, to make us laugh. And if we don't laugh, if we find it offensive, that's something else as well. That's important. And in everything that's funny, there's a little bit of truth.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's why Spitting Image was so popular and so hated at the same time, right? Because it was very close to the bone. I mean, something that you touched on earlier about house prices and land prices, this idea of home as a source of abundance with Jupiter in Cancer. When we think about this, because one of the things that we noticed, obviously, when Jupiter went into Taurus, the prices of food and everything just kind of skyrocketed, right? I was expecting, and maybe this has happened, maybe it hasn't. One of the things that I did expect to happen was I expected the price of education and courses and things to go up while Jupiter was in Gemini. Haven't seen as much of that as I expected.
I would imagine that's more with Jupiter and Sagittarius,
Okay.
because Jupiter in Gemini has seen uh, the expansion, Jupiter, of quick courses, cheap courses, thousands and thousands of courses online.
Yeah.
So
And
the
ChatGPT.
Yeah, and you don't know what's good and what isn't. And I have people sometimes ring the school or email the school and say, I've got a diploma from the whatever, whatever, and it's some sort of certificate of excellence or something. And they've done about 5 hours astrology, and I'm exaggerating here, but they've done very little, and think that that qualifies them now to know everything, and they get very anxious or upset when in fact what they've learned is just the surface. So I think maybe Jupiter and Gemini has been that everything is now available and double what it was before.
Yeah.
Typical Gemini.
That makes sense. So this idea of home prices and land going up. I mean, houses not so much, but land is one of the only things that we're not making any more of, right? And there's always more people coming into the world at any given moment. So that kind of tracks. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay, the last one that I really want to talk about is this idea of because I've always found that Jupiter does have a visionary quality to it, a very intuitive, psychic kind of energy to it. Cancer itself, as a sign, I have this argument, and I'm probably going to get a million comments about this, but In my personal experience, and not talking about me, I mean for clients and people, in my personal experience, Cancer is the most psychic of the signs because it's the most active with that psychic ability, meaning that they are tapped into it and they will act on it. Like Cancer people, Cancer moon, Cancer rising, I've seen them literally intuit people's needs before they've even said like, oh, I need this or I have to go here or do whatever, and they'll literally fulfill that. And people will be like, but I didn't even, I was going to ask you if you could do that, but right. And they've met that need. I've seen this so many times. So I really do feel that for all of us in the collective in some way, Jupiter moving into Cancer is going to bring a lot more of an intuitive energy to the world.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I don't know whether I mean, when you say is it true or not, I mean, I don't know which is the psychic side. Uh, I think all the water signs have a intuition that can get blocked for different reasons. So Cancer would get blocked from holding on to the past. You know, their intuition and be able to connect to the world may be muddied because of uh, what's happened to them in the past, or resentments with family and history. Yeah,
Mhm.
Scorpio can be their intuition uh, can get blunted or muddied again because it's attached to an emotional issue and not able to let go of it because it's fixed water. And Pisces can be muddy because it doesn't know when to put the defenses up or put the boundaries up or just
Or where
say,
the boundaries are.
yes, yes, and just say enough or just get swamped by far too much as well. So, yes, they're all very intuitive, psychic signs. And, I think we're all intuitive if we listen. So maybe the invitation here with Jupiter, as you say in Cancer, is to intuit other people's needs. But most importantly, and I say this as an Aries, most importantly, to intuit your own first before you dare to go and rescue anybody else. Have a look at your your particular needs. What is it that would make you feel more comfortable? Um, the greatest aspect of Jupiter is gratitude.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody that will sit there and write a gratitude diary. Thank you, Oprah. Love no, I love Oprah and whatever people say and but the bigger you get, the more people tend to trash you, of course. But
Yeah.
this woman has brought back reading to the world, particularly to America and etc. And anyway, she always used to talk about gratitude diaries, and I think, oh my goodness, no. But just that moment of pressure, of stress, to say thank you, to stop and say thank you. That would be such an important thing to do every day. Uh, Billie Jean King, I mentioned her recently in some talk I did, the great tennis pioneer. She wrote a book called Pressure is a Privilege, and meaning
Nice.
if you're ever in a position where you're under tremendous pressure and expectation from people, it's because you've worked hard to gain that position. So
Yeah.
it's a privilege to see that you're there and whoa, it's like you and me, sitting and about to go up and do something at the Royal Albert Hall last year, that sense you have to remember in that moment what a great privilege it is to be able to be there and to be able to do something, So my feeling is if you can use Jupiter to just say thank you in the moments when it doesn't turn up, or we get shafted for some reason, or you get dumb emails from people, or the government want to audit you if you're in America or do something, in those moments of saying thank you for what you've got, that's a big thing. The other thing I would say is that look back to 12 years ago, look back to the middle of 2013 to the middle of 2014. That's when Jupiter was in Cancer last. And I would say if you've got a diary, if you've got an idea of what was going on there, take a look at what you were attempting to do. We're all now 12 years older,
Yeah.
a lot of different experience. Jupiter's been through all the signs. The sun has been through the signs 13 or 12 times since then. So look at what was going on in your life, what you were trying to develop personally, Jupiter in Cancer, with the family, what you were trying to do. Now, for me, Jupiter in Cancer, in some ways, is just trying to make my 91-year-old mum's life better.
Yeah.
Jupiter in Cancer, that sense
Mm.
of what can I do to give her something that just makes her comfortable in this final stage of her life. So it could be very simple like that. So mix and match. Think about what can I do to give other people in a Jupiter and Cancer way to reach out to them,
Mm.
uh, give them abundance, something that feels caring and nurturing. And who can I give that to? And I think that may be the key of starting the transit well.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. And also, the optimism, I've found like when you're talking about gratitude there as well, like I don't think I've ever remembered being in a state or kind of saying to myself or getting into that. I don't keep a gratitude journal either. One practice that I did start in 2014, 2015 was just really thanking the home that housed me, even if it wasn't mine, wherever I was in the world. It's like, you know what? I didn't sleep rough tonight. I've got a roof over my head, food in my belly, clothes on my back, like just those. And it really only takes like a minute. But after that, I've always felt like a lightness. And I wouldn't say like happy, but definitely a lightness or a levity, as Jupiter is known for. And the more I think you can tap into optimism, and the brighter side of things, it really does attract more of itself. And that goes right back to what Frank was saying earlier, is the lens through which you view the world is what you're going to collect. And when you think about Jupiter as a gas giant that has like a lot of gravitas, if you're activating that frequency of something higher, something more optimistic, or even just something slightly more grateful, in that gratitude energy, you're going to draw way more to you that is better for you. And more importantly, you find a way through whatever challenge is showing up for you at any given moment. It's not always about like, well, I'm just going to be optimistic and everything's going to come my way. Sometimes it really is, okay, you know what, this sucks, but I made it through today. That's good enough.
It's true. And I have a habit now of just laughing. If I find myself moaning about something, and there's been a lot to moan about in the last few weeks,
Mm.
uh, with delays and different things, just to laugh it off as first world problems, because really, I mean, we have it so lucky compared to most people. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing. I've just laugh it off and say, okay, I've moaned, but first world problems, move on. That's the
Absolutely.
takeaway. Yeah.
Last thing to add, just with this idea of Jupiter and healing, because Cancer is a very reflective sign, right? It's ruled by the moon. The moon is a reflective being. It's all about our inner and our, sort of emotional world, our behavioral patterns, etc., and our mind, which fluctuates. So for me, like, I like this idea that healing the past in some way is now possible, right? Jupiter in Cancer, that Jupiterian lightness or healing that comes into the sign of Cancer, which can be a bit crabby, right? And hold it, I always say to my Cancer clients, you got to take off the shell and give it a wash every so often because it gets a bit fusty in there, right? So healing the past, right? Is there some aspect of your past, maybe some aspect of your past with a mother figure, or maybe somebody of a matriarchal energy, or that side of your family, some tradition, some element of your past that you think over a lot that maybe you wish was different. Maybe you can't change it, but maybe you can change how you relate to it and therefore how it affects you moving forward.
I agree. And Jupiter is the planet of the future, the idea of moving forward, moving ahead, and Cancer's the sign of the past. So you don't really know how to get where you're going until you know where you've come from, until you've made peace with your past. And that's probably a terrible new age cliche to say, make peace with your past. But the reality is um, uh, forgiveness, letting go. As we know with all the water signs, if they don't wash and cleanse and detox, water gets toxic.
Yeah.
And cancer can be toxic from, well, my sister got more love for my mum, or we we didn't see our dad, or there can be so many reasons why we can hold on to the past and be angry and feel toxic about it. So Jupiter, as you say, if it's through the Pisces lens of Jupiter, the sense of healing by seeing the bigger purpose of it, the bigger meaning. It's and that's one of the great things about Jupiter is that if we can see that actually it's small in the scheme of things, and that actually the bigger picture is unfolding in a way that is helpful or meaningful to us. If we can find meaning in things, the little things and the past that we can't change can be reconfigured. It can be rewritten to some extent in the present and for the future.
Yeah, I love that. That makes me really excited because one thing that I like in the spiritual community at large, there's this idea that if you don't have a tradition or come from a certain lineage, then you're not a real insert whatever title after that, right? Like dot dot dot. And one thing that I always say to people is every tradition was once started by somebody. Start your own. Start a new one now and let that be your tradition moving forward. So I love that idea. Yeah, I like that because this idea of Jupiter being the future and Cancer being the past is like take that forward, start a new tradition of your own now, hand that down to your kids or to your chosen, in the rainbow community, we've got chosen children, right? Hand it on to somebody that can carry it on and treat that new tradition as one that is a tradition and will be one from here on in. You can create your own as well. You don't always have to have had one that's hundreds of years old or whatever, because it's
Yeah.
not always possible for everybody.
No, well, people like, I mean, Jupiter is the opposite temperament to Saturn. And when somebody starts saying you should have this, or you need to have this, or you need to be part of some whatever to be genuine, it's just a simple rule that somebody's made up to because they're probably feeling insecure or they're wanting to keep certain people out, And Jupiter is about freedom rather than constriction. And so, as you say, the only constriction, the only chains that we have around ourselves are the ones we choose to put on ourselves. A bit like people who are patronizing, it's it takes it takes two people to patronize one. You've got to be able to be patronizable
Yeah,
in
you
some
got to
ways.
participate in it.
Yes, so it's a bit like that. So Jupiter's about freedom. The shoulds and the coulds and the all of the rest are more Saturnian, and we can leave that to Saturn, and we leave it to the people that live in a Saturn world.
Yeah,
Uh, and we all live in a Saturn world, but that's why we need around us we is Saturn, but we need a bit of Jupiter to take us beyond that, to take away from the all the rules and regulations and the shoulds and can'ts and all of that. Yeah.
definitely. Frank, you have a new book. Do you have an excerpt to read to us from your new book?
No, no, I didn't understand what you wanted, so I didn't.
Ah,
Um,
well,
an
Frank has a
excerpt
new
for
book
me. Um,
called
okay.
Getting to the Heart of Your Chart.
Well,
Uh,
it's an
you,
old book. I wrote it in 2011, 2012, so it's just over a Jupiter's cycle ago. I just put a new cover on it recently, added a few bits to it. Uh, it's been a while. I'm a Virgo moon. I'm always looking to uh, try to get things as good as they can be and fix the occasional comma and all of that. So it's been around a while, but I would say it's a book for those who want to go beyond, who want to start reading charts rather than simply just reading about the zodiac. So it's not really for the absolute beginner. In the LSA, I have it as a term three book once they've learned the signs and the planets and the aspects, etc. But I mean, I do have uh, the uh, I have a few notes about Jupiter that come from the book if you want me to read them out.
yes,
Uh,
please. I kind of like that when you said like, yeah, I've just added some bits to it and expanded it a little. That's very Jupiterian.
It is, I remember, and there was a book review many years ago in one of the American, I think it was Dell Horoscope or something, and he said he didn't put any planetary combinations in, and it wasn't a book of looking at Mars and Saturn or Venus and
It's not a
Jupiter.
cookbook.
It wasn't a cookbook like that, but I have added them this time because I felt because I created them for my school, and also I thought actually they could do with them. So then I can tear up that review. It's fantastic. So
Break the rules.
if you what I wrote in the book, there are lots of things about Jupiter, but I was saying if you have a Jupiter signature, meaning if it's strong in your chart, usually meaning if it's speaking to different parts of your chart, like your Sun, Moon, Mercury, or if it's on one of the four angles, stuff that you need to know a little bit more about astrology. You've got the idea of the philosopher, the eternal student, the eternal student stroke teacher. That's Jupiter because you never, as soon as I started teaching, I learned more than I ever could just sitting on my own doing nothing or just, trying to teach myself. By teaching, you learn, you become an eternal student. Um, you've got the idea of the diva personality, the diva temperament. Jupiter is strong in the charts of the divas like Mariah Carey, who need puppies and don't do stairs, that type of thing. Mariah doesn't do the stairs. We're going to have to bring the whole concert down to the ground floor. That sort of thing. I'm kidding. I don't know
Yeah.
about Mariah really, but um,
Anyone that knows Mariah knows that's actually quite accurate. Yeah.
yeah, and good for her. I think it's more usually when you're Jupiterian and people elevate you, there's the people around you are the ones that demand a lot. It's not really the person as much. That's the impression I get. Marlon Brando famously said, and he was Sagittarius rising with Jupiter there in the first house. He said, people come looking for Zeus, but I'm just a son of a bitch in a mobile home, in a mobile home, waiting for the film to or the cameras to start rolling, something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so you've got the flamboyant promoter, the philanthropist, you've got the evangelist of Jupiter, very
Mhm.
much the televangelists of the 80s in America were all Pisces, Sag, very Jupiterian. You've also got the guru, you've got the con artist, John DeLorean, who's elevated as the great man, the great con artist, was more Jupiterian than you could believe. The star maker, the Svengali. Jupiter speaks of a desire for recognition, authority, influence, and acclaim, but it can also be a life of lucky breaks, being in the right place at the right time, getting to know the right people, being around people who can do good things for you, and hopefully vice versa. Often, if you're strongly Jupiterian, there's a jovial, a word you used earlier, hopeful, questing, future orientated nature. And it often indicates a life of exploration, learning, teaching, and the idea that the power of positive thought really makes your life beyond the narrow vision or lack of vision that people have. So even if we're not Jupiterian in nature, grab a bit of Jupiter when you can and think of the broader consequences, the broader vision. Have a vision of what you want life to be for yourself. And that in a way is aligning with the principles of Jupiter.
Yeah, nice. I love that. But all the time that you were saying that, there were so many things that I guess I have Jupiter in Capricorn at 29 in a sextile to Saturn in Scorpio at 27. And yeah, that really that idea of cautious expansion kind of makes sense to me.
You're really tough on your Jupiter, aren't you? You're tough. You
Yes,
don't like
because
people.
it's not that I don't like it. It's just it's really it's not that I do. I'll be honest with you. It's only in the last 4 or 5 years that I've really learnt to love and respect it. But it took a long time to get to that point because there's always been this thing with time where I'm either too late or too early, and it's like, or what I have noticed as well is like sometimes I'll put something out and it'll do nothing. And this isn't just with my channel, this is lots of stuff. And then somebody else will come along and do the same thing, exactly the same thing, and it will just, and I'm like, dude, come on, like work with me here. So yeah, it's not. I love it now, but no, I haven't always, I have to say.
Yeah, I know we've had a lot of conversations about it over the years. I would say that Jupiter and Capricorn is about taking time. Capricorn takes time and experience to respect another Capricorn word, the advantages, the opportunities that come. So in a way, and being the final degree of Capricorn as well, is that, it will come eventually. You just have to wait. You have to be patient. Yes, other people will speed past with similar ideas, and it'll be a bit like the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah.
But that Jupiter and Capricorn, the great invitation of that is to build an empire, build something for the future that will stand the test of time. It just takes time to get there, and it along the way you can not believe in it. You can lose faith. Capricorn
Mm,
can be cynical in that journey and to think, oh, well, maybe I should have given it up or changed. There can be all of that, but that's part of the journey. And
yeah.
that's the humor in it as well, is that it is taking time for you to respect and enjoy it and appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. And also, do you want to be a Jupiter in Sagittarius, where maybe your money and your experience and your time would have gone on travel instead of building what you're building? There's always good questions to ask if you want to compare it to other signs. And then eventually you end up thinking, hey, my chart's really me. It's okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've helped me understand that over the years from 20, I mean, I took my first course with the LSA in 2014, I think, 2014, 2015.
Mm.
And yeah, just over the years, I've learned a lot about it and about myself and how, everything works. It's been a really good journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frank, please tell everybody where they can find you. Are you open for consultations at the moment?
I have a waiting list at the moment because I've not opened up any new dates. So they can go to londonschoolofastrology.com, get a free account. Lots of freebies that we do during the year of different live talks that are recorded and uploaded. Lots of new things happening, which I can't talk about just yet until the contracts have been signed. But sort of Jupiterian expansion in an interesting way. So that's happening probably over the next
Hey.
few months. And they can, yes, that's probably the best way to find me. I do have my own website, but that's really just to join the list, frankclifford.co.uk. You can join a list of consultations if you want, but it may be a while before I'm back seeing people just because I've
On
got a
the table.
lot of deadlines, a lot of deadlines. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, good luck with it. Everybody, head over to the London School of Astrology.com, sign up. As Frank says, there's lots of stuff there. There's so many resources, more than you can shake a stick at, and there's plenty of articles as well. Frank, always, 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 always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for
Next
the
time.
invitation.
Yeah, we'll pick some people out and have a look at some charts and see what Jupiter is doing out there in the world for you guys. With that said, thank you all so much. Take care. Tune in again soon. And Frank, we will have you back very soon, I hope.
You will. You take care. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Soon.